Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome back to the video. Today I wanted to talk about the state of Minecraft parkour. For those of you who don't know, Minecraft parkour, very big part of my channel, pretty big part of my childhood, honestly, too. Like I played I don't want to say a ton of parkour growing up because I started playing most of it when I started doing it on YouTube, but it was still a sizable portion of my childhood. It feels like as being just something very memorable for me when I was younger. Um, and currently, it feels like it's in an interesting state that I wanted to talk about. So, first off, let's talk about like the trends for a second. Um, Google Trends, what I kind of used to look at this stuff. For those of you who don't know how it works, basically you pick a time period. In this case, I was using 5 years just because since 2019 feels like a good benchmark. And then the highest peak of its popularity during that time is listed as 100, and everything else is listed as a percentage of that. So, like, if it's a 90 today, that means it's at 90% of its what search terms it was getting at its peak during the last 5 years. So, like, ultimately, as long as you're not seeing a huge drop off, it's not too much of a problem since you don't expect everything to stay at its peak. When something's at its peak in terms of search terms, there's normally something really big going on. It's causing a lot of people who never heard of it to find out or whatnot. So, like, you don't expect it to stay at its peak, but you want it to stay at a decent margin of it. Um, with that being said, Minecraft right now at 70% about it's been hovering from like 50 to 60 recently, and then over the last like month it's jumped up to 70. So like it's doing pretty good right now. However, Minecraft parkour is not doing so well. It's at like 40 compared to its peak in the last 5 years. So like a lot further down when you consider how well Minecraft's doing, the fact that Minecraft parkour, on the other hand, is struggling a bit. I feel like below 50% is probably a good point to say there's a little bit of struggling going on. Um, when you consider all that, why is it that Minecraft parkour has dropped off in comparison to Minecraft? One possible answer, I think, is that parkour, like IRL parkour, has dropped off. It's not as popular as it used to be, um, which I think in large part just comes down to there's only so many times that you can be shocked seeing somebody who's climbed on top of a tall building before it's kind of like, yeah, there's crazy people who are climbing on top of tall buildings in what looks like very dangerous manners, and sometimes they die doing it. So I guess very dangerous would add up. Um, so where does all this come in? Ultimately, with Minecraft parkour, I think that that's a possible answer for why it's struggling. The thing I find so interesting about the current state of parkour is it feels like the map creating has been doing really well recently. I quite like the current map creators that are popular in the sphere. I'm playing a map by He Like Maps right now for the video. Um, but like it feels like compared to maybe some of the time when some of the Blue Man maps. I think the Blue Man maps create a very interesting time period because I find that I can't think of any other creators that were really popular during that time. Like right now, we have multiple map creators that are doing really well. The Blue Man was kind of the peak during his time. It felt like, like there wasn't really a bunch of competitors. His maps were really good, but I feel like there's something about his maps that current maps lack, in the sense that there's not a lot of difficulty to these. There's a really high peak of if you're speed running, you can do really well. But ultimately, if you're just kind of playing well, there's not really much going for it, right? Like, you can play it decently well, And if you refuse to um, play speed running from there, the maps are really easy. They don't have all that many difficult jumps in them unless you're speed running and having to use some of the difficult shortcuts and all that. Whereas when you play maps from somebody like the Blue Man, the maps themselves were fairly difficult, right? Like you could play a pretty difficult Blue Man map and still have a good time doing it. You might get stuck for an hour on a couple levels, but it was generally a pretty good time. Um, with the new maps, you don't really have that. There's no spot where it's like, yeah, I could have gotten stuck for an hour. Um, I do want to say there's one exception to that, which is Parkour Limbo, which was a great map. Huge props to the creators of that map. I really liked it. Um, but moving aside from that, like besides that, maps generally are in a pretty easy state. And when maps are in an easy state, I feel like you hit a bit of a, I don't want to say peak, but it becomes harder to keep people as engaged for as long if every map's pretty easy and pretty similar, which seems to be the current state of map creating. Um, and like, I don't think he-like maps are at fault at all. I think one thing that has happened though is he-like maps had a lot of success with maps like the one I'm currently playing. And everybody else wants to replicate that, so they come out with similar looking and feeling maps that lack some of that difficulty. Um, Once again, this is part of why I think Parkour Limbo was so impressive, because it was, I'm not going to say that it wasn't a little similarly styled to a lot of older maps with the whole, like, 100 levels type feel that a lot of maps have. But the map itself was difficult. The general design of the map was different than you see with a map like this. Um, Whereas, like, everybody seems to recreate basically exactly how the He-like maps look. And I get that in some cases it's people that have worked on the He-like maps, making their own maps and stuff like that. And I'm not in any way pointing fingers or complaining about any specific map creators. As I've said, I really like the current batch of map creators. I think um, I think there's some pretty good people among them, and some pretty good map creators too. I just think that there might need to be a little more focus on the difficulty. I think that might be one of the aspects that's playing in to the kind of drop off in popularity. Now, it's also possible that within the period of a couple months, it'll start to feel the effect of the re-spike up in Minecraft's popularity. And it really was just moving with the trends just a little bit lagged behind. I didn't look at the charts long enough to tell for sure if there's something like that going on. It's hard to direct compare with this stuff because the way Google Trends work, you, it'll just show as a percentage of the peak popularity of whichever one had the peak. So like in a case like this, when you put them directly next to or put them both in, it just shows Minecraft parkour is less than 1 the whole way through. Obviously, it's, far less popular than Minecraft. So, like, there's something to that. Uh, Generally, I think it's very possible that parkour will head in a good direction. I'm not being, like, doomsday or anything like, oh, parkour's done. But this is just some stuff I worry about with the current state of it. Um, And I thought it would be interesting to make a video just kind of addressing my thoughts on the current position of parkour. I'm interested to hear what any of the map creators in my audience think, because obviously they're a lot more tuned in as a general rule to player counts and download counts and all of that stuff than I am as just a player. Um, so yeah, any of you guys are interested in sharing what you guys think about the current state, I'd be very interested to hear as well. Now there was one other thing I actually wanted to touch on. Speaking of that, is the increased number of like servers, like the He map server, where you no longer have to download the maps. The thing about something like this is when you're playing on a server, the next time you want to play, you don't have to search it up. You don't have to search up Minecraft maps and um, pull up the map downloading website and all that stuff. So it doesn't affect the trend. So I think it's possible that one thing that's happened is there's more people that are just kind of playing maps on a server like this. And as a result, there's less searches for it. I I don't know if there's actually anything to that thought process, but I think it's possible that that at least plays a part. Um, Once again, that's something I'd be very interested to hear the perspective of on from some map creators, because I don't know what the server numbers look like. Like I know that there's 2 people on the parkour egg section of Helix maps right now, and probably like what I think like 35 on the server in total. I don't know if those numbers are good, you know. Um, so like I'd be interested to hear from those people what it would be looking like, because the thing to consider is if there's like 30 people playing on a server like this at most times, and a map would get like, up 10,000 downloads with the server up. Instead, it gets like, 5,000 downloads because X number of people decide to just play on the server instead. If you have 30 people playing, how does that, like, how does that add up to the replacement of the downloads? I don't know. I think there's a lot of considerations there that would have to be made in terms of numbers to tell exactly how it looks. Um, Ultimately, I think the point I'm just trying to make, though, is parkour trends look down, and I just wanted to go over some of the reasons why I think so. I don't think I have a grand novel philosophy behind this video, but yeah. Once again, any map creators, let me know what you guys think on this topic, and yeah, anybody, let me know in the comments what you think. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one. God bless. Bye bye.